You enter into a long commitment seeking safety. You seek the soft landing of certainty, the assurance that you will not face the fundamental loneliness of existence alone. This is the promise of marriage. And for a time, it delivers. But the very proximity that guarantees security is the same proximity that slowly, almost invisibly, begins to erode desire. It wears down the edges of the individual self until two distinct lives merge into a single, predictable narrative. This process is not a failure. It is the natural consequence of deep, continuous familiarity. You begin to know your partner not just intimately, but predictably. You know their reactions before they utter them. You know their anxieties, their small comforts, their rhythms of breathing in the dark. And when you know everything, you stop looking. You stop being curious. This is when the quiet, persistent emptiness begins to appear. It is not a dramatic, sudden void. It is the slow realization that the emotional vitality you once shared has been replaced by operational efficiency. You stop being lovers and become co-managers of a complex domestic enterprise. The conversations shift entirely to logistics, the bills, the children, the schedules, the maintenance of the shared structure. You discuss the what and the how, but rarely the why or the who. This is the true danger. Not conflict, but silence. The silence that indicates a lack of curiosity about the world inside the person sitting across the table. Many people confuse proximity with intimacy. They believe that simply occupying the same space, night after night, fulfills the requirements of a deep relationship. But you can be physically adjacent while being emotionally continents apart. This slow drift affects men and women differently, based on how they are typically conditioned to process internal space. For many men, the functional success of the partnership, the clean house, the stable finances, the quiet routine, is taken as proof of emotional fulfillment. They often mistake the absence of complaint for the presence of connection. They retreat into tasks, into silence, believing their presence is sufficient, failing to recognize that intimacy is an active search, not a passive state. For many women, that silence is experienced as a growing abandonment. They feel the lack of curiosity acutely. They may seek to fill the emotional space with increased communication, which the partner often interprets as neediness or criticism, leading to further withdrawal. The result is that both feel unseen, but neither knows how to articulate the specific loss. They mourn the absence of the self they once were when they were still exciting to the other. When this emotional emptiness settles in, the I naturally begins to wander. We are quick to judge this wandering as a failure of moral character. But often, the attraction to another person is not primarily a rejection of the partner. It is a desperate, existential search for a missing part of the self. It is the longing to feel vibrant, mysterious, and whole again. The external person is not desired for their own sake, but because they provide a mirror that reflects a version of ourselves we fear we have lost, a version that is still capable of generating desire and inspiring curiosity. The pull is not toward the stranger's body, but toward the feeling of being desired, of being a subject of intense focus, rather than an object of habit. This pull is a symptom. It is a distress signal indicating that the necessary internal distance has collapsed at home. True desire, authentic eroticism, cannot thrive in the absence of mystery. It requires a gap. It requires the acceptance that your partner is not an extension of your own needs, but a separate, sovereign entity who exists slightly beyond your reach. We often confuse neediness with connection. Neediness says, I need you to complete me, to fill this void inside me. This demand for complete fusion is the enemy of desire. It suffocates the very air that passion needs to breathe. Desire is not about knowing everything. It is about wanting to cross that gap, again and again, knowing you will never fully arrive. It is the appreciation of a boundary. Connection, in its mature form, is the bridge built between two stable, sovereign solitudes. It is the recognition that while you are committed to the shared life, the core of who you are must remain untouchable, unknowable even to the person who shares your bed. This is the paradox of long-term love. To maintain the we, you must fiercely protect the I. You must find true solitude, not alone, but adjacent to the lifelong partner. And the challenge is learning how to carve out that internal space, not as an act of rejection, but as the essential fuel for connection itself. Because without that solitude, without that internal landscape that only you inhabit, you have nothing new to bring back to the shared table. You become merely a reflection of the shared life, and reflections, however comforting, rarely inspire true desire. The work, then, is not about finding better ways to be together, but finding better ways to be beautifully, securely, separate. The challenge, then, is not to find a way back to the intoxicating fusion of the beginning. That phase is over. It cannot be recreated, because you are no longer strangers. The work is to consciously dismantle the operational efficiency that has replaced emotional vitality. It means refusing to let the relationship become merely the sum of its shared obligations. It requires a deliberate, often uncomfortable, reintroduction of distance. This distance is not physical. It is internal. It is the boundary you must erect and maintain around your core self. Many people find this idea unsettling. They interpret boundary setting as a rejection, or as a sign that the relationship is failing. But in a mature partnership, boundaries are not walls. They are the necessary architecture that allows two distinct lives to stand together without collapsing into one another. You must reclaim that internal territory which belongs only to you. This means cultivating interests, friendships, or intellectual pursuits that your partner neither controls nor completely understands. It means having an inner life that is not constantly vetted or absorbed into the collective narrative of the couple. When you refuse to fully disclose every thought, every feeling, every small victory or fear, you preserve the necessary mystery. You allow the partner to remain curious about the person who sleeps beside them. This requires courage. It requires facing the internal fear that if you are not constantly available, constantly transparent, you might be abandoned. But the truth is, the most devastating abandonment is the loss of the self within the relationship. When you stop being transparent, you start becoming opaque again. And opacity is what generates light. If you have nothing new to bring back to the shared table, if you are merely a reflection of the shared life, you cease to be a source of renewal for the partnership. You become a comfort, yes, but comfort, in excess, becomes stagnation. The practical adjustment is often simple, though profoundly difficult to execute. It requires a shift from demanding fulfillment from the relationship to generating fulfillment within yourself. It means that when your partner retreats into silence, you do not immediately interpret it as a personal slight or a lack of love. You learn to recognize that they, too, are likely searching for their own necessary solitude. And when they offer connection, you meet them as a whole person, not as a needy vacuum waiting to be filled. This is the distinction between desire and neediness. Neediness is the demand that the partner complete your existence. Desire is the appreciation of their existence as a separate, sovereign entity. When you confuse the two, you place an impossible burden on the other person. No one can sustain the weight of being another person's entire reason for emotional being. It suffocates them. It turns love into a form of intense, inescapable surveillance. The great writers, from Tolstoy to Kundera, understood that the intensity of love is often proportional to the distance maintained. You must allow the partner to remain somewhat foreign. You must allow them the freedom to be strange. We must learn to appreciate the silence, not as an absence of communication, but as the quiet space where the individual self regenerates. For many men, this means learning to articulate the purpose of their withdrawal. It is not enough to simply retreat into a functional silence. They must learn to say, I am not pulling away from you, I am pulling toward myself, so I have more to bring back. For many women, this means accepting that the partner's internal process may look different. It means reducing the pressure for constant, exhaustive emotional processing, and trusting that adjacency, without fusion, is a powerful form of connection. The goal is not to eliminate the quiet sense of sadness that often accompanies deep familiarity. That sadness is simply the recognition of the fundamental, existential loneliness of the human condition. It is the truth that even in the most secure commitment, we ultimately face the world alone. But the mature relationship does not promise to erase this loneliness. It promises to stand adjacent to it. The mature commitment is the choice to witness the partner's journey into their own solitude, while maintaining the safety of the shared home. It is the recognition that the strongest bridge is built between two stable, independent pillars. When you fiercely protect your own internal life, your own intellectual curiosity, your own sense of self-possession, you perform the ultimate act of generosity toward the relationship. You bring novelty. You bring vitality. You bring back the self that is still capable of being desired, because it is still slightly mysterious. This is the true work of sustained intimacy, managing the paradox of proximity and distance. It is learning how to be truly alone, securely and intentionally alone, while holding the hand of the person who has chosen to walk beside you for a lifetime. You stop seeking the soft landing of certainty, and instead, you embrace the respectful friction of two separate, vibrant forces moving together through time. This is the only way to transform a long partnership from a comfortable habit into a continuous, active choice. The security is not in the absence of boundary. The security is in the respectful observance of it. And in that space, desire finds the air it needs to breathe. We need to speak.
If this helped you, subscribe now for more videos like this. Thank you.